All right, so this will be a video on Hebrews 3 and 4. People like to use Jesus is my Sabbath a lot. So this video will go over those two chapters and I'm going to explain it so that that gets, rid of that idea. But so let's just start in Hebrews chapter 3. Start in verse 1. So, wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Christ Yeshua, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. For this man was counted worthy of more glory than Moses, inasmuch as he who hath builded the house hath more honor than the house. For every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is God. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house as a servant, for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after. But Christ as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. Notice there's conditions to being part of Christ's house. It's not just once saved, always saved. It's conditional salvation. You have to keep with it. All right. It's chapter or verse 7. Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost saith, today if you will hear his voice. All right. And this is a long quotation of Psalm 95. So keep that in mind. Harden not your hearts as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swear in my wrath they shall not enter into my rest. Okay, so they're doing something he doesn't like. They're provoking him to anger, and he doesn't like it, so they're not going to enter into his rest. So you got to ask yourself, what is that rest? Okay, so I'll get to that, but let's just keep going for chapter 3. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Christ, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. There's another if. We're partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. Okay? Whilst it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. For some, when they had heard, did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And to whom sware he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed not? So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. All right, and this word unbelief, I think it's G543. It basically means disobedience as well as unbelief. So those two terms, they're related. So an evil heart of unbelief, disobedience, same thing. So they sinned, and that's why they could not enter into the rest. Okay, you'll remember like Numbers 15, for example. One guy was picking up sticks on the Sabbath, so he was breaking the Sabbath. He didn't really believe in, he didn't want to have that belief in God, so he just did whatever he wanted, and he was killed for that. So that's one example of unbelief. Of course, there's also all the other people in Israel at the time while they're in the second Exodus. They're like, it's better that God would have just killed us or just kept us in Egypt and we died there instead of in the wilderness. That obviously is another example of unbelief. So the next chapter, it goes into the promise of rest. And before we get there, I want to explain what this rest is talking about. So let's go to Deuteronomy 12. So these are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land, which the Lord God of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it, all the days that ye live upon the earth. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every green tree. And you shall overthrow their altars and burn their pillars and burn their groves with fire, and you shall hew down the graven images of their gods and destroy the names of them out of that place. You shall not do so unto the Lord your God. All right, so just right there, I mean that's talking about like obviously don't like try to use the remnants of paganism and try to use that to worship God because he's telling you right here, utterly destroy it when you get in the land. So all the people using like the Christmas tree and these other pagan holidays to serve him, that's obviously something he clearly says do not do here. So But unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come, and thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, and your tithes and your heave offerings of your hand, and your vows, your freewill offerings and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks. There ye shall eat before the Lord your God, and ye shall rejoice in all that you put your hand unto, ye and your households wherein the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. So this is kind of against like feast keepers right now. Like they're doing the feast offerings and they're not in the Holy Land. So this is kind of against them. But here's the point I wanted to get to about the rest. So verse 8, ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God giveth you. Okay, so rest and inheritance. The rest is talking about the inheritance, the promised land. The thing is, the Israelites, they got kicked out of the promised land. So the promise, Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, if they would have stayed in the land and, kept the commandments, then he never would have kicked them out. But because they were kicked out, they never got to experience the rest. And it'll get into that more in Hebrews. All right. But when you go over Jordan and dwell in the land which the Lord your God giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye dwell in safety, then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither ye shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, tithes, heave offerings, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. All right, and then it goes on. But the point is, the rest is talking about the inheritance. The kingdom rest is what it's going to eventually come to because God's going to bring everyone back in the second Exodus. And then that's what the rest is. You'll see it's a future thing it's talking about. So let's go to Hebrews chapter 4. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left of us entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. Okay? For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. But we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, As I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest. And that's translated a bit weird. It's the same phrase that he used just a little bit earlier about they shall not enter into my rest. Although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. Again, he limiteth a certain day, saying in David today, after so long a time, as it is said today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. For if Jesus, and it says Jesus, and that's mistranslated, should say Joshua, the guy of the sixth book of the Bible, the guy who succeeded Moses. Maybe this is some of the confusion comes from, but for if Joshua had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? Okay, so he's saying if he gave them the true rest, the promised land, like he was supposed to, and he did, he brought them to the promised land, he would not have spoken of another day. But they didn't stay in that rest. They didn't actually enter it because they were disobedient, like all the way from the beginning. They made a golden calf, so like they got kicked out eventually. So that wasn't their true rest. The true rest is going to be when we come back in the kingdom after the second Exodus. Maybe that's another reason why people don't understand this. They don't know what the second Exodus is. They don't know anything about the millennial reign or the kingdom. So I think the kingdom is just a place up in the sky, but no, it's on earth. All right. So for if Joshua had given them rest, then he would not afterward have spoken of another day. So, the Sabbath, if you think about it, what is it? 6 days, God does his work during the days of creation, okay? And the seventh day, he rested. So that's actually a plan. That's a foreshadow of what life on Earth is for us. So there's 6,000 years of chaos. We don't have rest. We have tons of sin in the world, but once we get to 6,000 years done with, we'll have a 1,000-year millennial reign, and that is what the rest is. Okay. Peter says, "Be not ignorant of this one thing, that a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day." So that rest is talking about the millennial reign, the kingdom rest. That's the rest it's talking about. It's future. It's not right now. It's future rest. Okay, and that's when we'll, have rest. That's what it's talking about, the inheritance. Again, so verse 9, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. All right, and that word rest is actually in the margins of the KJV. It says keeping of a Sabbath. So that's interesting. Verse 10, for he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works as God did from his. Now, verse 11, this is important, okay? Let us labor, therefore, to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. So we have to labor to enter into that rest. I thought, we don't have to do works to be saved or whatever, but no, you have to labor to enter into that future rest, okay? So we have to make it there. It's a future thing. For the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Uh, seeing that we Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Yeshua, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Grace to help in time of need. How does grace help us in time of need? It convicts us. It makes us do obedience, keep the Ten Commandments. That's another thing. People will use Matthew 11. Let's go to real quick. They'll use 11 verses 28 to 30. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Okay? So people will say that, oh, look, Jesus is saying he's our Sabbath rest. Well, no. What he's really saying is he's going to come. The rest he gives us, he takes away the sacrificial law. He died so we don't have to keep sacrificing animals for our sin anymore. We don't have to stone people for our sin anymore. Okay, his burden is light. Remember, 1 John 5, verse 3, the commandments. Uh, we know we love him if we keep his commandments, and the commandments are not grievous, they're not burdensome. Okay, so the rest he gave us, he took away sacrificial law, and he magnified, he elevated uh, uh, the Holy Covenant, the Ten Commandments, and that's what it's quoting here. Verse 29, take my yoke upon you, and ye shall find rest for your souls. That's actually quoting Jeremiah 6. So let's go there. It's Jeremiah 6, verse 16, I believe. Yep. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. There it is. But they said, we will not walk therein. That's exactly what they're doing. They don't want to walk in the old paths. They want this new idea of Jesus is our Sabbath rest. But, Yeshua, he told you, walk in the old paths. That's how you find rest for your souls. The old paths, that's the Ten Commandments. In the very next chapter, it distinguishes between, the sacrificial law and the Ten Commandments, the Holy Covenant. Jeremiah 7, verse 22, for I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. But this thing commanded I them, saying, obey my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk ye in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. So originally he didn't want to give them the burden of all the animal sacrifices and the stoning people to death for their sins. He originally just gave them the Ten Commandments and was like, obey this, and you will be my people, and I will be your God. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels and in the imagination of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. So because they did that, they were booted out of the rest, and well, now they're not in it anymore. But now there's a promise coming that if we enter into the rest by keeping the old paths, the Ten Commandments, then we can enter into that in the future kingdom. That's when it will come. That's the rest he's talking about in Hebrews 3 and 4. That's the rest we're looking forward to. All right. So hopefully that makes sense.